Let's go now to John Culberson, Congressman, 7th District of the great state of Texas, which is on the front lines of this, apparently, this new wave of illegal immigrants that are already beginning to cross the border in both Arizona and in Texas. He joins us now. Congressman, it is a sad day for this constitutional republic, and I can't imagine what our framers would be thinking about all of this when they established 3 co-equal branches of government with different responsibilities, understanding how important the actual separation of powers is to a real republic, a functioning republic.
It really is a sad day for our republic, Laura, and our founding fathers would be appalled. The rule of law is the foundation of all our liberties, of our prosperity. In fact, Laura, the first inscription ever minted on a coin from the Republic of Mexico said liberty in law. So it's just outrageous that our America's chief law enforcement officer, who's obligated by his oath and by the Constitution to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, is so blatantly disregarding the law, so just openly and defiantly refusing to enforce the law. And they know exactly what they're doing. They know this is illegal. If you notice, Laura, there's 2 clues that I think a lot of folks have missed. He's not calling this an executive order. And they haven't published anything on the White House website, as all presidents have done in the past with an executive order. They're calling this some sort of a executive action because they know it's illegal. And we are absolutely not going to sit still for it. The Congress is going to act and act decisively to stop him.
I want to talk about the measures that can be taken and that you advocate, but I want to play something from the president last night about the need, after he pokes you all in the eye and usurps your authority, he wants to work with you.
Don't let a disagreement over a single issue be a deal breaker on every issue. That's not how our democracy works.
So, he's insulting you. He called you enemies last election. He's lied repeatedly, not only about things like the economic recovery. He lied about Obamacare, totally perpetrated on a fraud.
Right.
He has lied about this. And so then you go work with that person? I do business, all over the country, different advertisers, different groups. I don't do business with individuals who repeatedly insult and lie to me, sir.
No, you can't do business with people that lie to you and insult you. And beyond that, Laura, it's even bigger than that. He's directly insulting all the American voters who turned out 2 weeks ago and defeated every Democrat that ran on amnesty, on supporting President Obama, and they all got defeated. It was like an asteroid extinction event for the dinosaurs. They got wiped out. So he's insulting the American people, the American voters, in defying what the Constitution obligates him to do, and he's not going to get away with it. It's just not going to happen. It's just outrageous. It really is, frankly, Laura, you're right, a really sad day. It's just.
I felt so.
Yeah.
I really felt
Yeah.
literally sick to my stomach. I don't mean figuratively.
I know.
Last night I was ready to go on with O'Reilly. I said to the makeup team, I said, "Oh my gosh, I have a wave of nausea. Like suddenly I felt like I was going to throw up. I felt really sick, and I actually think I was sickened by what I witnessed. Sickened by the emotional ploy, the emotional play. Like, the only people who are having a tough time in the United States are people who violated our immigration laws. Those are the only people who have separated families or who are working 2 jobs. I imagine you have a lot of people in your district who are working 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet.
Absolutely. It made me ill to watch him stand there with Ronald Reagan. I remember as a kid watching Ronald Reagan stand in that very spot. It just made me sick. And think about all the folks out there that are struggling, that doing their best to earn enough money to pay for their mortgage and their kid and all the expenses they've got, and they don't count. And all the folks that are out of work, wages are stagnant or depressed, and people are struggling. And record numbers of people are not even looking for jobs anymore. And all he's interested in is a voter registration drive. That's what this is. It's just so transparent and so shallow and so appalling. You're right. It frankly made me ill.
Well, Congressman John Culberson here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Congressman, a couple of ideas floated over the last few days. I know you're on the Appropriations Committee, which obviously is responsible for appropriating money for executive activity, executive action. So we're looking to you for guidance on using the power of the purse. One thing that was bandied about was this idea of funding the government through at least the end of next summer. So a big omnibus fat spending bill that then in the new year could be partially or wholly rescinded if the president really goes forward with this. What's your reaction to that?
Well, Congress has an immense number of tools at our disposal that we're all working on diligently behind the scenes to get.
No, I don't want it behind the scenes. We're sick of behind closed doors, Congressman. I mean, behind the door. But first of all, the rescission thing. The rescission thing is ridiculous, and you have to know that, right? Because the president will veto anything that you do on a rescissionary basis. That's just not going to happen. So the idea that you're going to fund this government, this corrupt government, till the end of next summer, I think is an abrogation of your constitutional duty to check an out-of-control president. And I know Hal Rogers is pushing this whole rescission thing. I just started howling laughing when I read that. Sorry, howling.
We're going to use we're going to do this the right way and make sure that we're going to shut down the president's executive action. We're going to stop the amnesty while making sure that we fund things like the Bureau of Prisons and the important work that's being done in the National Security Agency, the Defense Department, the critical sections of government.
Right. Well, we agree on that. No,
absolutely.
We agree
that's
on
what
that.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, but you're not buying into this rescission idea, though. I mean, that thing's already been blown apart as ridiculous. You're off that, right?
No, it's just that's just one of many ideas that was being floated around. But there's a lot of valid ways to do this, Laura. And your timing is impeccable to call me today because less than 24 hours ago, I was appointed to be the chairman of the subcommittee in charge of all the funding for the Department of Justice. The Commerce, Justice, Science Subcommittee has been my dream job since I got to Congress. And I assure you, even if Barack Obama, he doesn't pay attention to court orders, public opinion, elections, subpoenas, congressional hearings, he has to pay attention to the money. And you and I have talked about this before. I'm going to use all of us, the Republican majority, will use our authority to make sure that our hard-earned tax dollars are only spent to enforce the law. We're going to make sure the law is enforced, or these agencies are not going to get access to the money. And we're going to use a whole variety of tools, Laura. The rescission thing won't necessarily work, but there's a lot of other ways to do this, and we're going to do it intelligently, thoughtfully, and precisely, like dropping it right down. What is it? I'll always love that image of the bomb that went right down the smokestack of one of Saddam Hussein's intelligence headquarters that went off on the 8th floor. We're going to make sure it goes off in the right spot.
Okay, well, maybe we don't want to use that imagery, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Pinpoint. You want a pinpoint strike on this. So when you think about people leading the charge, I think of someone like, and I know you're friends with Jeff Sessions over in the Senate from Alabama, who more than any other person, I think in the Senate, of course, has led the charge of understanding just how the American middle class is suffering and how nobody gives them a seat at the table in all of this.
Yeah, he's been magnificent.
And so we're looking to you, and look, I've known you for decades, but I'm looking at you to lead that charge in stopping appropriations going to fund this executive amnesty. And will you pledge to lead that appropriations charge?
Absolutely. I'm pledging to you today, to my constituents, to the people of Texas and America, they can trust us. We will keep our word to our constituents and the nation to ensure the law is enforced and our hard-earned tax dollars are not spent on illegal executive actions. We're going to make sure the money is spent where it will do the most good, and that's to enforce the law and preserve our liberty and our prosperity.
What about this argument that I heard yesterday, which again, I mean, we kind of tore apart, but that, Congress, we have no control over what ICE spends on administering these policies because these are all fee-funded. What about that idea?
Well, actually, that is true. Only for the CIS, Customs Immigration Enforcement, that agency is funded by fees, just like the Consumer Protection Agency that Barney Frank created. Barney Frank was smart enough to fund that consumer agency with fees because it bypasses appropriations. But there's a lot of other ways that we can get at them and solve this problem. Remember, my new subcommittee that I just got yesterday has Commerce, Justice, Science. My subcommittee has jurisdiction over the Department of Justice, the Bureau of prisons, the Marshal Service, the FBI, DEA, all the federal law enforcement goes through my subcommittee, and I'm going to do this intelligently, targeted.
Right, okay, we got that, Congressman. But what I'm seeing, and Breitbart did a phenomenal piece on this, is that even back in August, on August 1st, your subcommittee voted to restrict how CIS, Customs Immigration Enforcement, spends its money, even though it's funded from fees. So you guys have already acted against ICE misappropriating or using money in an inappropriate fashion. This has already been done, and Congress can forbid them from collecting or using fees. That's also statutorily permitted. So look, I'm putting my legal hat on, but I just, what I'm saying, and I'm not directing this at you, but what I'm saying is you get the sense that there are a lot of lawyers in certain offices on Capitol Hill trying to figure out ways for Republicans not to challenge the appropriations, of ICE. That's what I'm saying. Not in your office, but I think in other offices there are.
It's actually not. No, Laura, it may look like that, but I want to assure your listeners and you and everyone listening, the Republican majority heard the voters loud and clear on Election Day, and we were elected to do a job. We were elected to stop Barack Obama in his tracks, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it primarily through the appropriations process and protecting our hard-earned tax dollars. And we actually already did what you just described. That language was included in the Border Security Bill the House passed in July. There was a section in there that simply said that Homeland Security can't spend any money until they get the approval of the subcommittee chairman. That's actually the best way to do it. It's called fencing the money, and that leaves Congress, allows us to do the oversight which is required. Show us that you're enforcing the law, and otherwise you're not going to get the money to run your headquarters. That works every time.
Well, it seems not to deter this president, and so I think people have. A lot of people have just given up. They feel like no one is representing them. And I'm going to praise you for what you're doing to pledge to use this power of the purse, because I see other Republicans say, well, there's nothing we can do about this. There's a limited effect. We're not going to shut down the government. Nobody's talking about shutting down the government. The only person who would be shutting down the government here over one slice of funding would be Barack Obama. Not you, not I, not anybody else I'm talking to. Nobody wants to shut down the government. We want to shut down unconstitutional behavior. And that requires a road show coast to coast by you guys. You guys got to fan out across the country, because otherwise it's just going to be the sob stories from illegal immigrants that we hear morning, noon, and night.
Republicans will do that, Laura. We're going to do this intelligently and thoughtfully and communicate it to the public. And the other thing to remember, Laura, is that there are legions of devoted law enforcement officers in the federal government who have taken an oath, and they're as upset as we are about this, but they can't speak up. And those are the folks that we're going to help. We're going to make sure that they get the support they need, because they want to enforce the law. They took an oath that they honor and respect, unlike the commander-in-chief, and those honorable law enforcement personnel are the ones we also need to remember. Hold them up and remember them. Congress is going to do our job and get them the help they need.
Well, better. Otherwise, we're going to lose all the ground we gained in this midterm election cycle. But I know Congressman Culberson is just one of the absolute best up there. Congressman, we knew we could count on you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura.
All right.